Another happy Sunday back at the keyboard. I've mentioned before that my Sundays tend to usually be my days for busy work, especially within the writing field. If I have anybody for any kind of like writing coaching, I'll always schedule them, usually for Sundays if I can, just so I can batch things just back to back, but also it just tends to work everybody's schedule. Most people usually have Sundays off. So this morning I had a session with one of my writing clients, and it became a very kind of heart to heart conversation. Um, Basically, we were talking about kind of output and effort. The gentleman is a very nice person, but they're not very good about being effective on deadlines. If I give them like 2 weeks to come up with a few pages of prose and to have it relatively polished, the gentleman simply is not doing it. They're stuck in this sort of writer's block, and so I'll do some exercises here and there to help them with that. But today it became an interesting conversation. It became one of me talking to them and saying, "All right, what do you see yourself doing in the field within the realm of writing? What do you see yourself doing?" Um, and they weren't certain. They didn't know, and so I started kind of narrowing things down. And what I had said to them was, do you see yourself as a professional or more as a hobbyist when it comes to writing? And again, they weren't sure. And so I kind of kept prompting them. It was like pulling teeth. I kept prompting them, and I got them finally to say, all right, why don't you write more? Why aren't you able to kind of follow this deadline? Is it too much? Is it not? Is it too much work? Is it just are these projects that we talk about you doing? Are they just not really inspiring to you? And it came down to, for them, saying, well, I like to write when I'm inspired. Um, and that was where we got where the conversation really started. Um, for those that follow this channel, those that are obviously writing, a lot your own, you understand that the notion of writing when you're inspired is it's probably one of the most amateur statements you'll ever hear. Um, to only write when you're inspired, it's I can't think of a single professional writer that ever does that. That ever waits until they feel like that the muse has hit them. Right? It goes back to like that Somerset Maugham quote about how they write when the muse strikes. It's just very fortunate that it always strikes at 9 o'clock sharp every day. Um, you can't really wait for the muse, especially if you're trying to do this profession. You can't do it. It's just not enough. You have too high of a word count and too little time to get this thing done. To wait for like full inspiration, it's just not a possible thing. Um, and so I sat down with them and I had said, what you had told me about waiting for inspiration is the hallmark of someone that is a hobbyist. And I went on to compare it, and I've mentioned this before. I went on to compare it to someone who plays basketball as a weekend, like on the weekend, and someone who wants to go into the NBA. If you want to go into the NBA, you have to be practicing every day, right? You're going to be training all the time. You're going to be thinking about it. You'll be working constantly towards this goal here. You'll be practicing, putting in effort. Um, if you just want to shoot hoops in the weekend, well, yeah, you can do that. You can just wait till you feel like playing basketball and then play basketball. Uh, and so I gave that conversation with the gentleman there, and they didn't quite say they still didn't end our session with any kind of it seemed like any kind of definitive insight on what how they viewed themselves. And so I've asked them to treat that as like their homework assignment for this week is just a think it over, think over what you actually want to do. Um, but I think too often in this process, though, the idea of being the hobbyist is shamed. This channel is not necessarily for that. if you follow my write every day thing, if you see that and you feel inspired by that, what I do here, you're probably not the hobbyist, right? You're probably treating this with a pretty good degree of seriousness. I would surmise. Um, if you're just a hobbyist, I just yeah, I can't imagine this channel holding isn't that much interest to you. Perhaps it does. That's awesome. That's really inspiring. But I think people that watch the channel, I think generally speaking, you're trying to get at some sort of stuff. You're trying to be consistent with your work. And for me, the professional is always someone who just shows up. Like if you're showing up and you're trying every day, you're a professional. That is the pro. That is someone who takes it seriously if you're actually doing it every day. But too often, I think the hobbyist is shamed. I think in this culture, I think we tend to glorify those that go to very large extremes, to those that go to the far edges of these things. Um, it's often highly celebrated if you can do something to a great degree of skill and do something very consistently, which makes sense, right? You don't celebrate someone for climbing up, a hill, right? For walking up a hill, you celebrate them for climbing Everest, you know. Um, but there's nothing wrong with being the hobbyist. There's nothing wrong with being the person who just shoots the hoops on the weekends. If you have just a story that's in your head every now and then, you want to get it out. Wait for the inspiration. You can wait. You can do that. But just being clear in understanding of what you want is the most important thing there. Knowing exactly what you want and being clear with your goals and being okay with that is good. Um, Obviously, on this channel, I have my chess games, right? I post those weekly. That's a hobby, right? That's me. That's me shooting hoops on the weekends. That's me basically. Instead of doing something else, I prefer just doing that, right? I'm never going to be at the highest echelons of that field, and I'm cool with that. I go in knowing that already. That yeah, we're gonna try hard. We're gonna we enjoy it. We're gonna try hard. Do our best on all stuff. We're gonna try to improve. But yeah, we're not treating this. This is not our life's work here. This is not our life's mission. I think too often we get seduced by the idea of having to make everything our biggest grand ambition. Um, and which I don't think it always needs to be that way. Clarity is what's most important. Understanding what you want and what it will take to get there is the most important thing. And if you're a hobbyist, celebrate it. Celebrate that you're a hobbyist. Um, be happy. There's nothing wrong with that. And you're not living your life to any lesser degree than the person who pursues something at the highest levels. There's no difference. Um, it's only a degree of what satisfaction is to you. There are many times where I wish I was a hobbyist, where I wish I wasn't as interested in the writing process because it is so grueling and arduous. And I would love to just, write when I feel like it. But I love the process too much. I love what I'm working on too much. There are too many stories in my head that need to get out there that um, I can't just leave it up to time and hobbying. So to all the hobbyists out there, I salute you.